World Series is set. Yankees and Dodgers, two of the biggest spenders in baseball, two of the biggest fan bases in the game, and it's going to be an exciting series. But after the World Series, watch for a lot of movement in that free agency market. We're going to get into that as well as we start to speculate on what the Cubs may do or not do. And I think there's some scenarios where the Cubs could go really heavy on starting pitching, or maybe they bring back an old friend in a bench role or in a part-time role that is actually playing in the classic, the World Series. So we'll talk about that and more. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe. Hit the thumbs up. Let's get this thing going. Great to have you on the Cubs baseball channel. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Cubs baseball channel. Mick Gillespie here at Broadcaster Mick on the socials, and it is always great to see you guys as we talk Cubs baseball. Not doing it every day, but we'll start getting cranked up, and I think we're getting to that point now with the World Series taking place. As soon as the World Series is over, you're going to have a flurry of activity. I don't know what the Cubs are going to do or not going to do. But I think that there's the potential of a lot of moves, and I kind of have talked about that already. And I'm not really sure exactly what their plan is, but let's just kind of stick with, hey, where we are right now with this roster and the potential free agency that could lie ahead for this team and what direction they're going to go. Let's start with pitching, and let's start with ace pitching, guys that are difference makers, because I feel like when I look at the Cubs roster, and I've said that on here before, I've shared my opinions on this. I just don't think the Cubs have the star power that it takes to win a World Series right now. And when I look at the Yankees and when I look at the Dodgers, I'm seeing a ton of star power. I mean, this is as great as any of the Yankees and Dodgers World Series from the past. Man, think about that. I mean, you're talking about Babe Ruth playing in these games, Mickey Mantle playing in these games, Joe DiMaggio, right? Some of the great Dodgers like Jackie Robinson, and going back in time and looking at these teams, Gil Hodges. I mean, look, I could sit here and talk about these Dodgers Yankees teams. I mean, going back even to the 70s, Tommy Lasorda, Billy Martin. The bottom line is this. The Cubs are built in a way where they have a lot of supporting actors, but they don't have the star guys. And I think that when you look at these teams, Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, Freddie Freeman, you go down Mookie Betts, you go down these rosters, and you're talking about big-time stars and big-time players. So if the Cubs are going to get to the World Series and win, they've got to have some of those guys as well. And I'm wondering if they're going to make that happen in the free agent market. And two names that keep popping up. Well, one name that keeps popping up, and I think they're going to have to spend a lot of money to get, is Corbin Burns. Now, the thing about Burns that makes him interesting to me and a potential fit is that the Cubs manager is going to look for somebody, and Craig Counsell, that understands the culture that he's trying to create. Right. And that makes perfect sense to me. He's a free agent, played for him in Milwaukee, went to Baltimore last year and did a great job. He was the ace of the Orioles staff, pitched excellent in the playoffs, a former Cy Young Award winner from 2021. He's been super durable, and he's a guy that I think that the Cubs would love to have, but who wouldn't love to have him? And now the question is, how willing are you to pay for that? And some of the estimates for Corbin Burns free agency, $255 million. Well, that makes sense. I mean, that's what an ace costs these days. And what you want as a front office is, look, you're going to willing to make that type of investment. You just want someone that is durable enough to pitch, like John Lester. Remember when the Cubs went out and got John Lester? Durable, lived up to the contract, went out there and got the job done. It wasn't like he fell off late. I mean, he just retired, but did everything that you could ask for more. And honestly, he goes down to me right up there with guys like Andre Dawson. It's one of the best free agent signings in franchise history. Absolutely loved it. And for the Cubs to be in a spot where the Yankees and the Mets are, they've got to have some star players. You put Corbin Burns at the top of the rotation, and guess what? Now all of a sudden, everyone else in there is a little bit more dangerous. Everyone else in there is pushed back a little bit. Now Justin Steele isn't your ace. I mean, he's your number 2 guy, and Shota Imanaga is your number 3 guy. Jamison Tyone is your number 4 guy. You slot everybody back, makes your team so much better if you go out and pay that money for Corbin Burns. Are the Cubs willing to do that? I don't know. But that's one of the questions. Now, the other guy that is going to be a free agent that you could possibly see the Cubs go out and get, it would cost you a little bit less, is a guy by the name of Max Fried. And you know him with Atlanta. They're saying that maybe he's in the neighborhood of $170 million. But the problem with Fried is he's got the forearm issues. 2023 missed all those games. And that's what you worry about when you're making a long-term investment, right? Is it worth $100 million less to go after a guy that's got no durability issues at all right now? I mean, you almost feel like it is. I mean, if you go and you pay Fried the money and then he gets hurt, it's worthless. That's the risk that you have with pitching. And the Cubs have done a better job since Theo Epstein left at developing starting pitching. I mean, we saw it, but guys get up there and they get hurt. And I think one of the problems that the Cubs have with the young pitchers that they've brought up is that they were so light on innings pitched in the minor leagues. You get to the big leagues and you're wearing these guys out so fast. They're getting hurt. Right? Jordan Wicks, one of those guys. Justin Steele's had durability issues his entire career. When he's been healthy, he's been great. But that's the thing. When's he been healthy, right? He was healthy 2 years ago. This year, he wasn't. And it was a constant problem. And, it really cost the team dearly because they needed him in that rotation. Ben Brown, another guy, gets to the big leagues. He gets hurt. But we saw flashes of greatness from really all 3 of those guys. I mean, I think they're 3 really good pitchers. But at the end of the day, you still got to have that ace at the top of the rotation. And so these 2 guys are names that you could possibly hear. I feel like Burns is a realistic possibility. I'm sure after being on the sideline, looking at the postseason again, you would think to invest. But then it goes back to the thing that I've talked about this entire offseason is what's the real direction of the organization when it comes to the front office. And there's just a part of me that says, hey, if ownership isn't giving you an extension and you are the president or GM or whatever, you're the guy calling the shots with a baseball team, you got a 1-year deal. To me, that kind of feels like, I don't know if I'm into that, because now you're worried about those guys making trades to save their career instead of what's best for the organization over the long haul. And you can really mess up an organization having a person that isn't going to be there long term or feels desperate to stay there. And that's always been the problem to me. So I say if you're going to keep Jed and the gang, you need to give them an extension. And if you're not, then you need to move on if you find the right person. So I think that's just kind of how it is in any business, but especially in sports, because there's a lot of decisions that the Cubs are going to have to make, and it's not just free agency. And we're going to talk about Nico Herer surgery here in a second, and we'll kind of get into why that is significant when you talk about where we are moving forward. So could Fried be a guy? Could Burns be a guy? Yes. I think the Cubs are going to have to spend money to make the roster better. Okay, here's the other one. And there's going to be more. Like, this isn't like only 3 guys, right? I mean, the polar bear could be somebody. But do you need a first baseman? Well, here's another first baseman, Anthony Rizzo. Could Anthony Rizzo return to the Cubs? People speculate that the Cubs would be interested in bringing back Anthony Rizzo. Okay, he has not been that successful in New York because of injuries. He's still a dangerous player. He's hurt right now playing, with, I think, some cracked fingers. He's had, the back injuries, the concussions and, the other stuff too. He's an old player now, guys. And I know he's part of our World Series 2016 team. We remember him as a young guy. Now he's kind of on the back end of his career. But what's the scenario that you would want Anthony Rizzo on your team? You got Michael Busch, who has become one of the best rookies in baseball. Think about what his season's going to be like next year, having gone through his rookie year and had success, and what he did in the minor leagues, where he absolutely torched the minors. I almost feel like this guy's has the potential to be one of the most dangerous players in the game next year in Michael Busch. So you're not going to go get a first baseman and then replace him if you really, believe that he could be someone that you build your team around. And I kind of get that feeling with Busch, everything that Craig Counsell said. So why would you bring in Anthony Rizzo? Well, here's the way that I see it. We got to figure out what's going to happen with Cody Bellinger's option, right? Is he going to opt in and take the $30 million, or is he going to opt out and go after a bigger contract in free agency? Now would be the year to do it because he's getting older. You could tell that there was a digression in his ability this year. Not a lot. I mean, still a good player, but he wasn't a superstar player. They've made the comments of, you look at the splits. He didn't do well at home. He did better on the road. He's an Arizona guy. Could he go somewhere else? There's teams that need a center fielder. It's not a real thick market for center fielders. Pete Crow Armstrong's taken that job. It's not his anymore. So you put him in left field. You put him in right field, but you got Ian Happ signed. You got Seiya Suzuki in your outfield. Then you got Owen Casey and a whole bunch of minor league guys that are prospects that you're going to have to find them a spot on the field. So say he opts out. Well, now all of a sudden Anthony Rizzo could be, hey, he could play a little first base. He could DH, gives you someone that the fans could get behind. I'd love to have a Rizzo return. It's going to be a sad day when Kyle Hendricks isn't back. And then we don't have anybody from the 2016 World Series team playing for the Cubs anymore. I mean, think about that. But that's baseball and that's life. And honestly, the further we get away from 2016, the more it feels like being the old lovable loser Cubs than it does the team that used to just, beat people up. But the nostalgic mix says, hey, I'd take Rizzo as a bench player and, someone that could jump in. And I mean, at this point in his career, he might be better to be a bench player, where he's not out there getting hurt all the time. But he could come in and be a great pinch hitter. So we'll see. I could see that happening with the Cubs and Anthony Rizzo. I could see them maybe if Bellinger opted out, replacing that left-handed bat with Rizzo. You would be taking the bats away from some of the guys that are right now in that, log jam in Iowa, the Cubs AAA affiliate. But you know what? I mean, Rizzo might still have a little bit of gas in the tank, and who knows? Just something to keep an eye on. And then finally, Nico Herer had flexor tendon surgery, and you're not going to get a whole lot of information on this. But he had flexor tendon surgery. This is interesting to me for a couple of reasons. First off, I thought Nico had a decent season, and compared to some of his comrades, he was kind of where I thought he'd be. With his contributions, defense was good, whatever. He got hits, not a power guy. The problem that Nico has, a former Gold Glover, is that the Cubs have a lot of infielders that are all kind of stacked up right now in AAA. And Nico has trade value. But does this hurt his trade value? Our team's going to shy away because, hey, he just had, flexor tendon surgery. I thought that Nico could possibly be a candidate to trade just because Matt Shaw may be the answer there. He's got a lot more power than Nico. He's not as good defensively at second base, but the Cubs have an issue right now of hitting, driving in runs, and I think that Matt Shaw has the potential to do that. James Triantos, more of a contact hitter than Shaw. And where I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, has swayed a little bit, because I think Triantos is a really good player, but the problem with him compared to Shaw, I think Triantos is probably a little bit better defensively than Shaw at second base. Shaw brings the power, but what separates those guys is when Shaw's struggling, he can walk. Yeah, he's got a really good eye. And I think that's going to translate to success in the major leagues a little bit easier than Triantos. But I think both guys have the potential to put up, very good numbers and be a part of this Cubs organization moving forward. The bottom line, though, is that they both can play second base. And you got Dansby Swanson signed for years, so they're not going to play shortstop. And honestly, Dansby's way better defensively at shortstop than they are. So the move to me would be Nico Herer. So we'll, see what happens there. But maybe this, sidesteps that ability. Teams might be like, hey, we don't know if he's going to come back from that flexor tendon surgery. Or are the Cubs going to make deals for their young players? And that goes back to deciding what you're doing with your front office. For Tom Ricketts and those guys, they have to make decisions that the people that they're putting in charge of baseball operations need to feel invested and not, walking the plank. And it feels like they're walking the plank to me. So it's here nor there. Sometimes having a sense of urgency, it helps you. But I think when it comes to somebody that manages all the money, you go out and sign somebody like Dansby Swanson. Now you're stuck with this guy. He's a decent player, but he's not a star player. And there's nothing you can do with it. And it's like Jason Hayward. I think he's a better version than Jason Hayward, but his offensive stats aren't much different. So, we'll see what happens there. But you guys get in the comments section, starting to get that baseball vibe again. And I apologize that I haven't been cranking out more content. But the problem is there's not a lot of things to talk about. And what I found out from you is that if it's not something that you want to watch, content-wise, you're just not going to click the video. So if you want me to hang on, do more shows, you got to watch. So like and subscribe. If you're new here, share with your Cubs friends, get in the comments section. And I'm looking forward to a fun off season. But you guys are the best audience out there in baseball, and love hanging with you. So do it again here soon. Go Cubs.